correctly. You may not like it, but this is what peak performance looks like. Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the Freestyle Friday event played today, August 8th, on the great site chess.com. Now, Freestyle Friday is a new event as part of the whole Freestyle series of tournaments that have been held over the board. As a complement to the series of tournaments, we have this online event, which is an 11-round Swiss tournament, exact same format as Title Tuesday. So it's 11 rounds, you can play anybody, and we're obviously playing this event because there are many top players competing, including the 5-time world champion, Magnus Carlsen. So today I got off to a very good start. My positions were a little bit shaky in multiple games, but I got off to a start of 6 points out of 6. Now, naturally, the only other player who had a perfect score was the aforementioned Magnus Carlsen, who also was perfect. So let's pick it up in the 7th round. We're both on the same score. We're both vying to try and win the grand prize of $400 in this special event, and let's jump right into the action. So I have the white pieces here against Magnus. When you're playing Fischer random chess, with all the random assortments of pieces, it's very tough to figure out what to do. When you combine that with the fact that we're playing with a time control of 3 minutes and 1 second increment, it's very difficult as you have to come up with a plan very quickly. Now, normally when you have a queen and the rook in the corner like we do in this game, it's very common to push P on the edge of the board to play a move like H4 or G4. I actually considered G4 very briefly to try and go for the memes with the Grob opening here by pushing the pawn forward, but ultimately I thought, you know what, I'm playing Magnus, this is a serious game, let's not treat this like it's a joke. So I decided to play the move D4 instead. Now D4 is a logical move. I'm trying to claim some space in the center, but also here by playing D4, I open up a diagonal for my bishop, and after Magnus plays D5, I play the move F3. Now I can obviously play E3, opening up a diagonal, or C3 as well, but ultimately I decided to play the move F3. Now some of you guys might know there's this very strong grandmaster by the name of Benjamin Feinsilver. He actually commonly says that don't push the pawn to F3 or F6, but in this case, since we're playing Fischer random chess, I want to play F3 to play E4, building a big white center, but also because here I can very quickly develop with moves like Queen F2, Knight to G3, and castling the king out of the center of the board. So after F3, we get the move F6 from Magnus. I play the move E4. We get C6, C3, Knight G6, Knight G3, Queen F7, Queen F2, and now we get the move pawn to E5. Now, one of the drawbacks of playing Fischer random is that the common setup when you're playing from the black piece is sometimes to play the famous mirror on the wall variation, where you simply create the mirror and play the exact same moves. Another name for the mirror, of course, would be the copycat. So I play bishop c2. Magnus goes bishop c7, bishop e3, bishop e6. Now I play knight d2, knight d7, and here I play the move knight b3. Now this move is an inaccuracy by me. I'm trying to play a little bit quickly here, but when I go knight b3, what I should have done is I should have used my time and tried to come up with a plan. Now what makes me kind of laugh at this position is that the computer wants white to castle here, and this is a move that I did not even really consider, because after pawn takes pawn, I was very worried that I would lose this pawn on a2, or there would be some kind of attack on the queen side. If I had half an hour, for example, maybe I would consider this, but without a lot of time and trying not to fall too far behind on time, I decided instead to play knight b3. Now what I think I should have played from the human perspective here is simply castling, and after castles, then trying to figure out what my next move would be, but instead I go knight b3. Here Magnus castles, I castle, and now we get the very strong move a5. Now the reason this move is so strong is that Magnus is taking space on the queen side, or the wing of the board here. Now very specifically, black wants to play a4, kicking the pony from this b3 square, and if I try to play a4 stopping black from pushing forward, now black can play pawn takes pawn, and very suddenly the queen and the bishop line up to create the double A battery, spying the knight on b3, and if I take the pawn, I lose the horsey, and I'm simply down a horse, and I resign instantly. So I can't play the move a4, which means Magnus is pushing P, he's expanding on the wing, and I already could feel a little bit of uncomfortable, I felt a little bit uncomfortable here because the position is starting to go in Magnus's favor. So I play the move rook fd1. Magnus goes a4, I play knight c1, and now he plays pawn takes pawn and takes the knight on g3. I take back, he takes on e4, and here I play the move bishop takes e4. Now you're probably thinking, why not take with the pawn, creating the classic big white center? if I take with the pawn on e4 here, black has a very strong idea of c5, and after pawn takes pawn and knight g to e5, suddenly the horse is going to g4. Let's say a sample line, knight d3, knight g4, queen d2, and after queen to h5, black is very quickly checkmating on this open h file. Now it's also worth pointing out, even when you're playing the standard regular chess, it is very common if you get double pawns on the g file, if your opponent is able to put the heavy pieces, a queen or a rook, on this open lane, you can get checkmated. So it's something to keep in mind when you get double pawns on the g file, either when you have the double pawns or if your opponent has them, to try and put a queen or a rook on this open h line. So I decided to take with the bishop instead. Magnus goes knight b6, and now I play the move bishop c2. Now, one of the things in my mind in this game that I was thinking about is that I want to move quickly. I want to put pressure on the clock. Now, this is something that I was not very good at doing in the EWC, the Esports World Cup tournament, where Magnus was actually able to play the games very, very quickly, not just against me, but also against players like Alireza as well. He avoided getting super low on time. So in the back of my mind, I know that Magnus, when he gets low on time, can make mouse slips, he can make blunders, and I'm really trying to just keep the game going while playing Nepo style and moving fast. So we got knight e7. I go g4 here, trying to take away the square from the knight or the bishop. Magnus plays knight d5. I go bishop d2, and now we get the move f5. Now at this point, I know that I'm in trouble here because Magnus has a nice knight on d5. It outposts his pawn on d4 with the bastion, the other knight jumping to c4 to fork here. This position is very, very good for the black side. So I go g5. Magnus plays f4, and now I play the move knight to d3 here, hoping to create my own bastion by putting the horsey on e5. Magnus goes bishop f5 here. Apparently, I could have still played the move rook e1 because after bishop f5, I can go bishop to e4. And after queen h5, knight d3 takes, and knight to c5. I have my own bastion where the knight targets the pawn, but I also have a classic wooden shield as well, so there are some chances to save the game. But instead, I play knight d3. We get bishop f5, knight e5, Magnus goes queen to h5, and now I'm going to lose this pawn on g5, or so it would seem. So I trade the bishops, and now I go for this move g4. Now, one of the things about Magnus is he's a great world champion. He's played chess for a long time, but it's very clear that Magnus actually forgot that en peasant, also known as en passant, is not a required move in the game of chess. Because here, black can simply play the move queen takes pawn. I can't take the towers, I would lose my king. And when I play a move like rook e1, black can play h5 or rook to f8 here. Black is up a pawn on the king side and doing very well. But Magnus instead forgets that he is not required to play the move, but he does it anyway. So after pawn takes pawn, I take, and now in this position, I'm much worse here, but at least I'm not losing the pawn on g5 here, the bishop and the queen guarded, or this pawn on f3, which is guarded by the queen and the knight. So Magnus goes rook f8. I play king g2, and now we get this very, very strong move, knight to c4. Now at this point, you'll notice that I am actually up nearly 40 seconds on the clock here, so I built a time advantage, but I'm completely lost on the board. Now in this position, I play the move rook to h1 after a 20-second think. You're probably wondering, why can't I take the free pony? If I take the pony, black crashes through, you have rook takes pawn, you have the double stack with the queen guarding the tower. And here, if I move the queen to, let's just say e5, for example, there's probably a very simple checkmate with rook f2. If I go king g3, black is check, king g4, and rook g2. King can't slide over to the f line, the rook is covering all the squares. I block, and rook takes g3 is GG on the spot, or checkmate, I should say. Additionally, if I play a move like queen to e1 here, many ways for black to win, but the simplest is to go queen g4, checkmating the king. And after king h2, there's rook to h3, creating the classic ladder checkmate, which was essayed or showed very, very nicely by OpenAI 3 yesterday when it defeated Grok in the Kaggle AI exhibition tournament. But Magnus, of course, has not been paying attention to any of these things. I play rook to h1, and now we get this move, knight takes d2. Now, this move came as a complete shock to me in the game because when I was spending my time here to play rook h1, I was expecting Magnus to go queen to e8, and I was in vain, desperately looking for a way to create a checkmate idea like queen to h4 here. But after queen to h4, black can simply play h6, and after takes, a knight takes e5 here. If I take the pony, black has queen takes e5 with queen e2 check, and this is winning. And if I go pawn takes pawn here, black has queen g6. If I move the king, there's knight takes pawn, the king and queen get forked. If I go this way, black crashes through again with a double stack on the f line, and so it's all but over. So I was really expecting Magnus to play queen e8, and I was just like, I got to make a move. I don't see a move, so I played rook to h1, and now Magnus shockingly sacks the queen. Now this came as a huge surprise to me because, as I said, when I spent my 25 seconds, I expected to move queen to e8, but this shows one of the great and maybe only weaknesses that Magnus Carlsen currently has, which is that when he gets low on time, his brain does malfunction just like the rest of us, and he tries to go for something where he sacks the queen instead. So he takes the bishop, I take his queen, he checks, forking my king and rook, I move my king, and now he goes knight takes rook. I play queen g4 here, attacking the pony while guarding the pawn on f3 from being captured, and now Magnus plays move knight f4. Now in this position, I play this move rook to h1 almost instantly, and as soon as I play rook to h1, I realized I had made a horrible mistake, because in this position, I could have played the move king to e3, and the pony is simply trapped. If you move the pony, I eat the pony. You go this way, I take the pony. You go to b1, I take the pony. The pony simply has no good squares available. This one, for example, I have a queen for a rook, and I should win. So had I played this move king to e3, I win the game on the spot. But this is one of the things about Magnus when you're playing him. Sometimes you see a move as soon as you've made a move. Sometimes you move instantly when you need to use your time. And it's very tough because these windows of opportunity are very small. So I play the move rook to h1 here instead, and now Magnus correctly sacks the rook with rook takes pawn, and I play the move queen d7. You're probably thinking, take the free tower. But after queen takes rook, black can go knight to e4, forking the king and the queen, and you say, well, take the knight, right? But now black is knight to h3, reforking the king and the queen, and more importantly, I cannot take this pony because my king is going to be captured by the tower, so I have to move my king, and after knight takes g5, black isn't necessarily winning here, but when we do the material count, black has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, white has 1, 2, 3, 4, one extra pawn, black has great chances to win, and white will not win in any world. So after rook takes g5, I go queen to d7 here, trying to keep the queen on the board. Back when I was just a young wee lad, I was taught that queens are worth 9, rooks are worth 5, knights are worth 3. You want to keep the queen on the board because it's the most powerful piece. So Magnus goes rook g2. I play king to e1 here, only move if I go king to e3. It's the classic spaghetti-o moment. There's rook to e2, checkmating the king. Look at D's knights, they're guarded by the towers here. The rooks guard the knights, the king can't slide over, and that's checkmate immediately. So I go king to e1. Magnus plays knight takes pawn, sacking a horse. I take the horse. He plays knight d3. I go king to d1, and now we get the shocking blunder rook to f7 from Magnus. Now what I suspect happened here is that Magnus intended to play the move rook takes pony on f3. After rook takes knight, however, this game probably should end in a draw by check. Rook f8 check, and black goes rook to f7, and likely we get a repetition. Black could go king h8 as well, but now similar to the game, white would sack the rook with rook takes pawn, takes, check, king g8 takes, and probably here after a move like knight b4 with the idea of knight d5, black will save the draw in this position, but the game will end peacefully. But Magnus makes a huge mouse slip here when he plays the move rook to f7. Worth pointing out that knight to f2 also is a line where black takes the tower, but after check, king to h8, queen e7, game once again probably ends in a draw, because if you move the rook, there's knight e5, and suddenly white is trying to smother checkmate the black king in the corner pocket. Magnus goes rook f7. I play check, rook f8, check, and now Magnus slides the king over, but here I'm able to sack the rook with rook takes pawn, and Magnus Carlsen resigns the game because after king takes rook, I play queen h3 checking the king, I take the rook on g2, and now I have a queen for a rook, and the queen and the material advantage will play, and I will get the win. Now, as I mentioned, this is probably one of the biggest weaknesses that Magnus Carlsen has when it comes to online chess. When he gets low on time, he does make these mouse slips. He will make these errors. And I will give Magnus a lot of credit because, as I said, in the Esports World Cup, there was not a single game where Magnus got below 1 minute on the clock. So Magnus does know that this is a big weakness, and he was able to avoid getting low on time in the EWC, which played a huge role in terms of why he would go on to win that event. At any rate, I get the win in this Freestyle Friday matchup. With this victory, I would move to a score of 7 out of 7. I would suffer a very tough loss in round number 10 to the Iranian Grandmaster Amin Tabatabai. However, I would finish with a nice win in the 11th round to win the tournament with a score of 10 out of 11. Magnus Carlsen would finish in second place with 9.5 points. So for once, at least, I end up ahead of Magnus. I get the victory in this Freestyle Friday, and that's going to do it for our recap. So I hope you guys enjoyed this recap from the Freestyle Friday played today, August 8th of the great year 2025. If you are not already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below, and we will be back with more great recaps and great content in the coming days. Hope you guys enjoyed it and have a great rest of your day. I'll see you very soon. Bye.